Greetings, brothers and sisters. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. One more day to be in the land of the living. In the land of the living, up here. Up here. That's our job, is to keep our righteous mind, brothers and sisters. Keep our righteous minds. I'm very thankful to be here today. Very, very thankful to be here today. Yes. Happy to be here. Got some work, brothers and sisters. Just had a young brother killed. A young brother, young rapper that was killed, brothers and sisters. A young rapper. We gotta discuss this gangster rap too. It's killing us. Gangster rap is killing us. Literally killing our county. Another ploy set in by the white man to destroy our young black brothers. Another ploy. So we're gonna have to talk about this gangster rap. I've got a whole week just dedicated to talking about this gangster rap. It's taking our kids out, literally killing our children. So brothers and sisters, we have work to do. That's why I tell you, we don't have enough time to be fighting. We don't have the luxury to be fighting amongst one another. We don't have it. We need to be fighting to make our existence known. That's what you and I need to do. We have to do that. Fight to make our existence. Thank you, brother. So all of those that will straighten up my door here, all of those that will sacrifice for the black community will be greatly rewarded. And you'll go down in history, brothers and sisters. Standing up for black people and making the sacrifice. We don't have enough people making the sacrifice for black people. And we got to do it, make a righteous stand and a holy stand. You know, we had a great show discussing our dilemma on the Tahaka Bay interview. We had a great discussion. And we have 6 more interviews to go in on. But the main reason for the interview now, due to the aggregate we had, or the aggregation we had to Brother Tahaka, is to come together and see if we can find some common ground as black revolutionaries to stand on. Leaving all the rest of the stuff behind us, leaving that stuff behind. Just coming to the table and literally seeing that there's some fabric of unity that we can work through, right? Stand together, united, and fight and defeat a common cause. So that's our ploy. It's our desire. Our ploy and our desire at this point. So I'm very happy. I'm very encouraged that we will eventually, find our place as kingdom building, because the journey is set. You can change that. If you rewrote the whole script, you can change it, because the atmosphere that we breathe, there is liberation for the black people. The atmosphere that we breathe. Brothers and sisters, I get so excited when I talk about liberation. I just don't know what to do. It's powerful. It's very powerful to be controlling our own destiny. And I know there are people who don't even believe it. There are people who don't even believe it. That's sad. You know, white man is not going to give you any reparations. He's not going to give you any salvation. Not going to do it. And it's crazy because you know you got those out there that feel like that the white man is going to give it to you, but he ain't going to give it to you. You can't stand it. White man hates you, black man. White man hates you. He hates the yellow man, he hates the brown man too, and the red man. He hates you. So he'll never do anything to help you on your liberation. You ain't got to worry about that. He'll never do it. You want to be liberated, you're going to have to do it on your own. It's the main thing that I say when I come before you. If you want liberation, you have to do it on your own. You have to do it on your own. So it's powerful to be at the forefront to be able to do this. Our liberation. It's beautiful, brothers and sisters. We have embarked upon a time that our grandparents and great-grandparents have been wondering. They wanted to know. They wanted to know how long. Isn't that right? How long should prejudice blind the eyes of men? However difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, it shall not be long. Sweet crusty earth will rise again. How long? Not long. Isn't that right? For no lie can live forever. How long? Not long. Truth forever on the scaffold. God forever on the throne. Just so that scaffold sways the future. Behind the dim unknown, standing God within the shadows, keeping watch above his own. How long? Not long. Right? For our eyes and what? Seeing the coming and the glory of the Lord. He trampled down the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He loosed his faithful lightning and his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. He sounded forth a trumpet that shall never sound retreat. He's sifting the heart of sinful men from the judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on. Isn't that right, brothers and sisters? And that's enough to say glory, hallelujah, about. And our God is marching on, and he's using us as vessels. He's using us as vessels to do his will, to carry his will out. Brothers and sisters, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm thankful today because I can see in the weather our deliverance. I can see it in the weather. You know, all across America, and Sister Joanna was showing me this. She was showing me, a little sweaty, brothers and sisters. Sister Joanna was showing me all across America how these storms and fires and all of this stuff are just happening all at once in the white man's part of the country. This is not a coincidence, brothers and sisters, but this is an act of God showing his wrath on the white man for his treatment of the black man and woman in America. And I'm so thankful, I'm so glad that God sits high and looks low, that he sees the suffering of his people and is ready to move. But not only that, brothers and sisters, but God helped those who help themselves. Isn't that right? If a man's trying to gun you down, you don't run, stop and pray. No, you run and get a gun to put the one that was after you with the gun on the run. Isn't that right? So God give us wisdom and common sense. We are being killed on every hand. Isn't that right? We are literally being killed on every hand. I mean, there seems to be no deliverance for the black man and woman in America. There seems to be no deliverance. And it's crazy because when we think of all the trouble that the white man has put us through, bringing us here in this country. Those of us that were not already here, because there were Africans here. I tell people all the time, I use it as an example. You know, excuse me, brothers and sisters, there were states in the nation that had not even known slavery. You understand me? I said there were states in the nation that had not even known slavery. Arkansas is one of them. This is the reason why they had the Louisiana Purchase. Louisiana had seen slavery, Arkansas had not. Missouri had not seen slavery, not full slavery. Right? Kansas City, carried over from Missouri, had not seen slavery. The West had not been won, isn't that right, for slavery. So black brothers and sisters could go to the West, isn't that right? And they could get an understanding, brothers and sisters, of liberation, freedom, and kingdom building, and how it would benefit them from a village society. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, is it? Today, brothers and sisters, we have another special message. Because you have to go into it. You know, if we don't study these things, then we won't have an understanding of it. Minister Malcolm and Albert Cleage. Same way we had Dr. Khalid Muhammad and Albert Cleage. And I speak on these things. You'll see Cleage come up often because he's such a multifaceted figure in our liberation until we're missing. The government is not going to talk about Albert Cleage. They don't even want you to know about the shrine of the Black Madonna. Government don't want you to know that. I said they don't want you to know, brothers and sisters, because they want you to believe that only the black militants and only those from the Nation of Islam who have transcended religion in the form of organization and have expanded spirituality into social revolution. But they're not going to tell you. The enemy's job is not to tell you, brothers and sisters. You shouldn't be excited. You shouldn't have any misunderstanding, because you should already know it. That the white man is indeed your enemy, and that the white man indeed desires to sift you as wheat, desires to crush you under the mill, isn't that right? He desires to drag, isn't that right, your body, isn't that right? Desire to drag your body and decapitate from your body your head, spiritually, physically, and otherwise, so that you will, through this decapitation, culturally and religiously and physically, will know not who you are, where you come from, how you got here, what are you doing when you got here, how to get out, and how to get back. And once you get back, what you must do to maintain that there. This is the reason why they didn't want you to really know about your heritage. The white man knows that if you understand your heritage and have some kind of instruction with your history, that you're going to fight like hell to get back. Is that right or wrong? Brothers and sisters, what you and I have to do is understand the foundation. Why and how was Albert Cleage risen from the dead among us? How and why was Minister Malcolm risen from the dead among us? Because, we have to talk about death. Our brothers and sisters today are suffering, brothers and sisters, from physical death Is that right? Excuse me. They're suffering from physical death, and they're also suffering from spiritual death. And in that spiritual death, there's psychological death. Isn't that right? And even biological death. What do you mean biological death? Well, you have today many men that are cross-dressing and experimenting with this demonic science called homosexuality, lesbianism, transgenderism, bisexualism, right? And I don't know what the Q stand for. Now they got LGBTQ. Queer. The sister said queer. And the sister, are you ready? No. The sister, she got to come back before us, brothers and sisters. She got to come back. She's running from us. We need the sister to come and give us some of that spiritual anointing. Her and that teaching that she does. I love to see it. I go back to review it because it's so helpful to the mind and the body. But the sister has certainly given, she has that knowledge. That's why I tell you. She has that knowledge. But you got the lesbian, let's see, what is it again? LGBTQ or LTBGQ. But these acronyms for illicit, abnormal, inordinate affection of the human body. This is a sickness, brothers and sisters. And not only that, but it works against black nationalism. Homosexuality, lesbianism, bisexuality, transgenderism, and queer works against the system of black nationalism. Is that right or wrong? Now, when we study, and I'm going to get toward our subject, brothers and sisters, but I'm trying to lay a foundation here. Because we're talking about black nationalism. And we have to understand what black nationalism is and what it isn't. You see, integration on any level has nothing to do with black nationalism. As a matter of fact, it's an enemy of black nationalism. Integration is the enemy of black nationalism. But when we talk about black nationalism, brothers and sisters, we are talking about getting with people of your own. And I want to say this. In wisdom, I say this. You have LGBTQ socially, because you have constitutional rights, right? As constituents, the black man work against himself, integrated in any organization, right, that doesn't include him wholly. Isn't that right? So, to me, it makes sense in this black nationalist war that we're fighting, that if one is to be blind and receive support, that you will still receive support from your own people. Why not have a black LGBTQ that repel white people? You don't hear me. Not that I'm endorsing it, because I think it is an illness, but nonetheless, and I think that they do themselves injustice. As black people putting themselves in white folks' business, while the white people get the benefits of this organization through civil rights, while black people are not getting in it. Because the Civil Rights Act works on discrimination. It works against sexualization. But the key to all of this is that the rights are not given to black people. It's not given to the transgender black person no more than it's given to the heterosexual black person. And we got to use our brain. We got to use our mind. But I said if they wanted to congregate, why not congregate amongst your own people? Why not congregate amongst your own group of black LGBTQ, where you're able to get some understanding and representation of what it means to be black and to be LGBTQ, right? Where in this organization, which is another power base socially, right? If not religiously, it's one socially. And by coming together with this power base, we will strengthen the ranks of black nationalism. When we say a United Black Front, brothers and sisters, I want you to understand something. A United Black Front amongst black nationalists only means that you got black groups on the front line. It's not a line of judgment, but it's a line of readiness, right, against the forces that oppress black people as a whole. So it don't matter what the organization is. You should still teach black nationalism in it. Malcolm X was killed because he understood this level of black nationalism. He understood this level of the fight where he could nationally request black organizations to come together and internationally begin to court Pan-African organizations with the same insistence that there are at least during his time 6 to 20 million black people who didn't have a knowledge of themselves, who desired to see and live in Mother Africa, to understand the abjection and the rejection of Mother Africa and what they were going to do for black people that were here in bondage. Malcolm X had decided, brothers and sisters, to go to the United Nations to pose his grievance, the same way Silas Muhammad went to the United Nations to pose his grievance. Brothers and sisters, we have to know today, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that if we're going to be liberated, it's going to have to be all hands on deck, right, for, with, and by black people. The minute you put one white person in there, you kill your progress, you kill the entire ploy. The minute you put somebody black, or rather somebody white, in the middle of black people. Not only is this true with whites. Now, I just want to explain this to you because there are some exceptions. But the black man need to be busy building up his own soldier ranks. Because the white man already has his soldiers. He already has his hypocrites. His millions is going to bag up white privilege with actual white racism. Brothers and sisters, why do you think the white man is killing you in the grocery stores, killing you in the churches, killing you in your home, killing our kids on the playground, killing you in the airports? Brothers and sisters, please. We have to understand where we are, who we are, how we got here, and who put us in this situation. The white man didn't bring you to America to be equal. You see, Minister Malcolm understood this. When the white man brought you to America, he brought you here because you were excellent in science, that you were excellent in math, you were excellent in medical training and surgeries. You were excellent in that. You were excellent in science, both plants and human science. The man didn't even know how to allow the body to deliver a baby as early as 300,000 BC. And so he created very harsh and brutal procedures to deliver babies, to deliver his own babies. The life expectancy of a white baby during 300 BC to current, his life expectancy was 6 years of age, 0 to 6. Because of cannibalism, because of abuse, most of these children were killed. Now, the white man didn't only kill his children, but he also killed his woman. From this Klondike style mentality, where he would get this this club and hang it over his shoulder. And anything he didn't understand, he beat it to a pulp. To conquer it or to kill it. And whatever he could conquer, he killed. And whatever he couldn't conquer, he killed. You have to understand what this white man is, brothers and sisters. And you have to understand what the white man will continue to be. What he is to you in the beginning, he shall also be that in his end. What was, will be, and what has been shall be. Isn't that right? So when we read the scriptures, it gives us a synopsis, brothers and sisters, of what is really going on in our world. A lot of you may not know about Lilith, but Lilith was the first wife of Adam. You can find it in the book of Isaiah. Lilith, Lillith, was in the garden when Adam told Eve not to take from the fruit. Lilith would have met and viewed the white man when he came in through the Nile as a discoverer or as a visitor, as an invader to your garden, to your community, to your nation. Isn't that right? The white man knows that Lilith was the one to pervert Eve by making translation from her white counterpart. Isn't that right? Now, I want you to understand something, brothers and sisters. All the prophets in the Bible were black. I know you have a problem believing that because many of you are still under the shroud of deception from the white man. But I want you to understand and I want you to accept that the prophets in the Bible were black. And they came to witness and to teach and to train and to try to civilize the white man. I want you to understand that when Abraham was getting ready to sacrifice Isaac, prior to that, he had been around Gebron and all of these places where Israel will be one day. And he began to tell the Europeans around there they couldn't kill their children and eat them. Well, Abraham is tried by God, brothers and sisters. And when he's tried by God, Abraham takes his child up on the mount and he's about to sacrifice him. Just as the heathens were sacrificing their children, getting ready to eat them. Abraham was doing the same thing. He was about to kill Isaac, sacrifice him, and eat his flesh. But when Abraham went up, God had provided a ram in the bush. The Arabic term is ashadiyai, which means God has provided and his provision is more than enough. My brothers and my sisters, we have to understand who the white man is before we can explain the urgency of Albert Cleage and the urgency of Minister Malcolm X, the urgency of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, the urgency of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the urgency of Master Fard Muhammad in giving this message to the black man and how you will get out of the situation that you're in. But before we can get out, brothers and sisters, before we can go in to populate and take over these states and have the regime change, we must first understand who we are, why we got here, and who we were before the white man invaded us and brought us here. My brothers and my sisters, we were scientists of the highest caliber. Pythagoras came to Africa and saw the knowledge of Samsu, the great general and mathematician who could build these symbols of geometry. In his mind, create 3D algorithm on paper and with actual objects and then build it the same way that he would create the model. And this formula, this Samsonite chemetic formula, was first seen by the Pythagoras. It wasn't discovered, but stolen by the Pythagoras, right, and brought back to Greece, and later became the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagoras didn't make it, he stole it to bring it back. Because we are people of the supreme wisdom, the supreme knowledge of the most honorable and highly regarded creator of the universe. That's me and you. We are plugged into the creator of the universe to give his word, to teach his way, and to govern his law. Isn't that right? That we might not sin against God from our hearts. The commandment was written in our hearts and on our hearts, and the conscience was put in us how to treat our fellow man. Now, why am I saying all of this? In Africa, we were taught to listen to our own leaders, our own shepherds. So much so that in one of the parables, Jesus said, "My sheep know the sound of my voice." But brothers and sisters, when the invader came, the cave dweller, the white man out of the Mediterranean, who had no regard for science, who had no regard for religion, who had no regard for philosophy, who had no regard for chemistry, who had no regards for the intelligence of man, to sit around and talk and come to some understanding on the operations of village building and communism. This is what we were before the white man came, and he didn't understand it because he was a bloody beast. They didn't have much food where they were. They had two choices. They could fight and kill each other for the small resources they had, and they did that for about 300,000 years. Or they could go out and find the people who knew how to cultivate the land and bring food from it, brothers and sisters, so that they were able to sustain themselves and store up that in which they wouldn't need, and even learn the science of creating seed from granary. That's an advanced science. Now, when we get to Minister Malcolm, we get to Reverend Cleage, we see two men on the same level. We see two men on the same level of gods. Is that right? Because they understood the fight. Albert Cleage's father had raised and trained him, and seminary had taught and learned him. The history of the white man had organized and constructed him for black nationalism. Minister Malcolm had come from the streets. He was the son of a preacher. His father was killed by the white man, which molded him early on with the black print that it's not good to trust white people. So he did two things Minister Malcolm did that hustlers do. The first thing he did was learn the white man. Learn his actions, learn his deeds. Learn all of his low nature, so he'd be able to appeal to it as a pimp, a hustler, and a burglar. Malcolm never wasted anything in his learning from the white man. And though he was illiterate in word, he was intelligent in heart and mind on how to reach and how to provide in the system of bloodsuckers. Because that's what the white man is. He's a bloodsucker to you, and he's a bloodsucker to me. Greetings, sister. Greetings, Sister Keisha Wash. And so Minister Malcolm and Reverend Cleage were destined to meet. It was Reverend Cleage who observed the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It was Reverend Cleage who observed the knowledge of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as it related to not only revolutionizing the thought pattern of black people, but how he related to picking a black person up from the lower state of their low nature and raising them up in righteousness to the highest state of their possible nature. And this is how he raised us up from a dead level to a live one. Brothers and sisters, you have to understand this, that the white man can't handle, nor can he trust for his system a black man that's in his high nature. Because our high nature is a nature of righteousness. It's a nature of unity. It's a nature of strength, because what we desire for ourselves, we desire for our brothers and our sisters. And we don't desire for them to be lost, right? We don't desire for them to be run amok in a society that they don't control, in a society that they don't own. And so the pressure, in that sense, was on and is on to raise up the black man. When we talk about Cleage and we talk about Minister Malcolm, we're talking about giants on the level of manhood who understood as Christian and as Muslim that there was no difference, that the same God overall is in us all and running through us all. So we look at Minister Malcolm and we look at Reverend Albert Cleage. We are given no excuse as black nationalist Christians or as black nationalist Muslims, if I can use that term. We are given no excuse as to not come together. Isn't that right? So we came together to perform a task. And this is where the white man gets uncomfortable, or have gotten uncomfortable through the years. Anytime the white man see a mass meeting of black people where he's not involved, and you wonder why he's going crazy and acting out all kinds of ways, it's because his system is threatened. Our unity threatened his system. If you had 2 black people, maybe 3, that's standing on the corner, the white man is threatened by that number because he knows that at the basic level is still a threat to his system. The white man knew that Minister Malcolm, as far as the population of black people were concerned, was able to induce a crowd of black people to stand up for themselves, to defend themselves, and to organize for themselves, and to mobilize for themselves. Many black leaders have been able to organize, but not many have been made to mobilize. When we mobilize, we talk about standing firm. We talk about mobilizing. I want you to understand that means mobilization is the act of organizationalism that causes something to happen. You know, you can organize by coming together on a common cause. You can organize by saying or giving information to one another so that you can be in the same pattern of leadership. That's organization. But when you mobilize, it's an act of moving forward and acting out the goals, the objectives, the ideas that you came up with as you were organizing. Minister Malcolm's mobilization involved freedom and liberation for black people. And he didn't believe that any white people should be involved in that, since they were guilty of putting the black man in that situation. So brothers and sisters, we can see already that Minister Malcolm was a threat. Now Minister Malcolm meets Albert Cleage. And I want to explain this too, because this is very particular to the knowledge taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and black liberation theology. This is very important. I want you to understand that Albert Cleage, as we read about him, had created the Shrine of the Black Madonna from an already existing congregation. This is very important. Albert Cleage, in, I believe it was 1950, somewhere around there. I believe it was 1950. Albert Cleage in 1944 became the pastor of an integrated church in San Francisco following his ordination. He began his pastorate with Chandler Memorial Congregational Church in Lexington, Kentucky. This is very interesting because I don't believe a lot of people are familiar with this particular knowledge concerning Albert Cleage. The Church of Fellowship of All Peoples in San Francisco didn't work out very long because this congregationalism imputed integration. It pushed for integration. And in the time period that it was pushing for integration, I want you to understand that there were many riots that were happening in California. So he became the pastor of St. John's Congregational Church in Springfield. And that's Springfield, Massachusetts, not Missouri. He served there until he returned to Detroit in 1951. Upon returning to Detroit, and you have to understand this, he served in an integrated church. The name of the church was St. Mark Community Church, which now is the United Presbyterian Church of America. However, some of the white leaders, see, this is what I tell you about integration, why it won't work. It was nothing new. It was a post-emancipation political act, but it's never been workable. Some of the white leaders of the church disagreed with the way Cleage was leading his black congregation. In 1953, Cleage and a group of followers of the church formed the Central Congregational Church, and in the mid-1960s renamed the Central United Church and the Central United Church of Christ, either one that you decide to use. The mission was to minister to the less fortunate, and they offered many programs of rehabilitation, of political leadership and education to the poor. He had a plan. He resisted the inclusion of whites in the massive walk of freedom June the 23rd, 1963 in Detroit. This shook up the white population, brothers and sisters, because this was the beginning premise of his black Christian nationalism. White people would try to keep you away from this ideology of black Christian nationalism when it's happening all around you. The Shrine of the Black Madonna is a part of that. But it would be the last time that he participated with white liberals as he moved away. When he moved away from the integrationist model, I want you to understand that he was moving away from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and towards black separatism, nationalism, along with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Malcolm X. This is very important. He had seen why integration had failed the integrationists. And in seeing where he had failed the integrationists, then he knew he had no alternative than to study black nationalism. And this is what he began to do. My brothers and my sisters, his main focus at that point, with Malcolm X in 1964, he had found the Michigan branch of the Freedom Now Party, all black people, and ran for governor of Michigan as a candidate of the black slate. And this candidacy of the black slate had the desire to start a black state, a black territory in Detroit, Michigan, which was already powerful in the system of black nationalism through the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who had been given the message to the black man of America from the Most Honorable Master Fard Muhammad in 1933. It was Clara Muhammad, the wife of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who had brought the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to that meeting in the same building which became Temple Number 1, which today is the Coleman Young building, there in Detroit, downtown area. I want you to understand that in his idea of black nationalism, he understood that we couldn't even trust the black man with the newspaper. At the same time that he's creating the newspaper in 1964, Mr. Malcolm had already created Muhammad Speaks. I believe the idea for it came as early as 1960. I want you to understand, brothers and sisters, that, and this is the key, that no matter whether you're a black Christian or black Muslim, black nationalism is the only benefit that you can gain. Your black culture, gain black separation, and gain black power, true black power, through economy, true black power through ownership, true black power through your nationalism in all that you do. So that means if you're in churches, that these churches, as black nationalists and teach black liberation theology, will keep the white man out but welcome black folks in. If you're in a black store, your black store belongs on the black side of town. If somebody's on that side of town, they can buy your products. But the money in that side of town will go back to the black community to give it a facelift. Where buildings are torn down, we'll be able to build them up. Where buildings are being lost and foreclosed, we'll be able to capitalize on buying those buildings, fixing them up, renting them, or either selling them to someone within the black community that's being employed by other work corporations in the black community. We have to understand that Minister Malcolm and the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad were very influential to Reverend Cleage. And he didn't see any different as a Christian than he did in serving with Muslims upon the same plan for black liberation. And when you look at Cleage, you can tell how closely he's influenced because he even wears a bow tie and the paraphernalia and keep even amongst him and his followers the tidiness, the neatness, and the upstanding arrogance of the black Muslim and the black Muslim movement. From the founding, he published a church tabloid, a newspaper called Illustrated News, that was widely circulated throughout the African American neighborhoods in Detroit in the 1960s. From its founding, he worked with the New Detroit Brothers and Sisters Committee, founded by Joseph L. Hudson. This organization was formed in 1967. And it's important to note that during 1967, they also had the Detroit riots that were designed to heal racial and economic divisions in the city, and they were exposed to civil disorder. Because black nationalism, brothers and sisters, has nothing to do with civil rights. And anytime they were standing as separatists, Then the numbers of black separatists grew when they saw the failures in the civil rights struggle. I want you to understand that riots are the acts of people that are unheard. Minister Malcolm X, Reverend Albert Cleage worked together to consume these numbers and preach this philosophy of black nationalism. And not only that, but bag it up with ministry in the community. Cleage later renounced his participation and returned the grant of $100,000 to the organization. This organization he's talking about is New Detroit, who were being sponsored by integrationists and wealthy Jews. Cleage returned $100,000 to the organization. In 1967, he began the Black Christian nationalist movement. He had totally embraced black nationalism by 1967. This movement was encouraging to the black churches to reinterpret Jesus' teaching to suit the social, economic, and political needs of black people, not only in Detroit, but around America. And in March of 1967, Cleage installed a painting of a black Madonna holding baby Jesus in his church and renamed the church the Shrine of the Black Madonna. Now, by this time, Minister Malcolm had been assassinated. He had been assassinated February the 21st, 1965. But they had worked together enough to be able to see the changes of integration and act out what needed to happen in the black community to liberate it. Brothers and sisters, their message to us today, as ancestors advising us from the past, is that the only time that we will succeed in liberation is that we take a state or city, an area where black people are populated, and make it work for us. That we raise up the stores in that community and make it work for us. That we raise up the churches in that community. That's right. We know the Elijah temples don't allow white people in it. But the black churches have to stop allowing white people to come into their congregation. They got to stop white people from manipulating their business community. Stop white people from manipulating their organizations and turn down the coffee. White man is inviting you to dinner. We got to learn how to turn that down. He's inviting you to take a salary from his organization, right? We got to learn to give the money back. And if we do that, it will catch the attention of our brothers and sisters, and we begin to pool our wealth from the lowest penny to the highest dollar, and to build and rebuild the black society, that we be able to not only speak the words of liberation, but live and act out these words of liberation. The most powerful meeting in the world that happened between these brothers was in 1964. I want you to understand that Cleage was humble to the teaching of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he had been observing this the entire time and watching the advances of the black community under Muhammad's teaching, as opposed to the black communities that were quote-unquote benefacting from the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement, brothers and sisters, have turned out more poor black people than any other race around the world. And we, brothers and sisters, finance racism, whether we know it or not, by putting money into white stores. This is our brothers' teaching and knowledge to us, that we finance racism by putting money in the white banks. We finance racism by buying cars from white dealers, opposed to building up these organizations and institutions for ourselves and buying black cars from black automobile owners, buying loans, signing loans in black banks, investing our dollar in the black bank, knowing where the nearest black bank is for our community, and having them to set up a kiosk there so we could compete in this race. Isn't that right? Compete with our own business in our own business communities. Brothers and sisters, they're teaching to us is that we will unite both black Muslims and black Christians and learn to work together. Stop supporting the white man, but build our own stores, our own gas station, our own grocery marts, our own lending institutions, our own churches, our own temples, and begin to reason with one another. Begin to come together with one another to do the awesome will of God, the awesome task set before us to be able to liberate our people. Brothers and sisters, that's all I have for you today. It's short and sweet today. That's all I have for you. We've got to learn and relearn our place in this society. We've got to decide what side we're going to be on today. That's our duty. We've got to decide what side we're going to be on. And it's a poor dog that won't wag his own tail. You hear that, brothers and sisters? I said it's a poor dog that won't wag his own tail. I love being black. There's no other color I'd rather be. I'm so proud to be in this time period, as you should be, so that we'll be able to bring the revolution, to stand in the day of the revolution, to speak the truth, to speak life to our brothers and sisters in this revolution, and to raise our brothers and sisters up from drugs, from alcohol, from illicit sex. Isn't that right? From the lower nature, to give our brothers and sisters deliverance from their lower nature, that they be able to see the God in us and see us as God. Isn't that right? And that's the question. Brothers and sisters, what must I do to be saved? Brothers and sisters, that's all I have for you. I'm thankful that you come. I appreciate the fact that you come to hear these words. And I pray that Allah will continue to strengthen you to do good, to do justice, to do mercy, to walk humbly enough to love my brother. Isn't that right? As God has also loved us. And as he has loved us, we are also to love one another. I said to you in the beginning, if not, I say unto you now, peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.